What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Jukebox on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is my co-captain, Nick.
Hey guys, I'm happy to be back and not talking about how much of a scuzz bucket Marilyn Manson is.
Yes, we'll be talking about something a little bit more upbeat. Well, I don't know.
Upbeat for this style of music, let's put it that way. And plus, I guess corpse grinder shopping at Target will be part of the conversation, technically.
Yes. So as you can tell, we're talking about the 15th studio album from Cannibal Corpse. This is Violence Unimagined. Now, before we get into the album proper, why don't you share a little bit of your background with the band?
So I have a bit of an interesting history of the band with them. I actually wasn't that big of a fan of them when I first listened to them. Like, I know that will be blasphemous to a lot of people, but the way I grew up and started getting into metal was obviously for starting out with like punk. I was listening to like Green Day, the Ramones, the Clash, Sum 41, Pennywise, Rancid, etc. But then getting into Metallica, Slayer, Korn, Slipknot, and having that metalhead, one of those types saying, "Why the fuck are you listening to Green Day? Listen to fucking Cannibal Corpse." One of those types.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go jam the band, and then you're like, why the fuck is this douchebag recommending this to me? So for years, I just really wasn't a fan and was put off just because I was like, I do not want to have to deal with, stuff that people like that are going to be jamming. But it wasn't until I want to say around the time Torture came out, I think I might have had it was either a website that was just starting to play like a lot of metal videos or just a YouTube playlist, but it was actually the title track for Evisceration Plague. That was the first time I just kind of went, "Oh my god, this is really good. I got to go check out more of this." So then I did my back catalog research, I did my homework, and then I've been a fan ever since.
Nice. I have a similar backstory in that, like, I wasn't really the biggest fan of Cannibal Corpse when I was first exposed to them. But more embarrassingly, I thought for the longest time that Chris Barnes, had a longer tenure at the with the band, so he was a lot of the reason why I was turned off. It wasn't until I heard a few tracks from Kill, where clearly that's Corpse Grinder on the mic. That's
Yeah.
that's when I like I figured out, oh no, this band is actually great once you get past their first couple albums.
Like, I don't want to sound like we're just trashing the Barnes era either, but all I'm going to say is the less we talk about 6 Feet Under, the better. And like me personally, as as Hammer Smash Face is really so synonymous with the band, and as really good of a record as The Bleeding is, for me, they really hit their stride around like 2006, 2009 with Kill and Evisceration. A lot of fans refer to it as the Kill era, which I feel is pretty accurate. Like, I really feel they've kind of hit a nice comfort zone.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Kill I think is probably the perfect first impression that anyone can have for this band.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, I don't want to say they get more melodic, but they start embracing a lot more, putting emphasis on hooks and that. And how am I going to put this in it'll still be R-rated either which way, but let's put it this way. The focus on sexually assaulting women in lyrics, there's a lot less of a focus on that. You're not getting so much stripped, raped, and strangled type songs more than you are getting something like Pit of Zombies once you get to the Corpse Grinder stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's generally why I like the Corpse Grinder era better, because it seems like the lyrics are they lean more into like horror movie material.
Yeah, like fantastical zombie type stuff.
Plus, when your nickname is Corpse Grinder, it kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, and we kind of have to address the burnt down house with the skeletons in the room. So there is a bit of a lineup change happening with this record. So Pat O'Brien, who was the longtime guitarist since going as far back as Gallery of Suicide in '98. Some of you might know he had a little bit of a meltdown in about, I want to say like November of 2018. And ever since then, Eric Rutan, he was a fill-in, but now he's a full-time, he was a temporary member to finish touring behind the last album, Red Before Black, but fully joining on this record.
And I gotta say, Eric Rutan's his contributions to this album are at least like 50 to 75% of the reason why I loved it so much.
Before I really get into fanboying all over this, like my just kind of still my thing, as good as the recent three have been, like honestly, and I'm saying this with nothing but love and respect for them, I always go in just expecting a really good Cannibal Corpse album each time. Like they don't really change all of that much from album to album. It's not like you're gonna hear them all of a sudden drop in melodic death metal in there. It's not like you're gonna hear them drop keyboards in there. It's not like you're going to hear them go in this like really radical new direction. But the thing that they've always done record to record, I feel, is they've kind of retweaked the formula, where whether it's okay, let's make the guitars heavier, so let's tune lower, or how about this, how about we make the songs tighter and just make it a quick 2-3 minute track. The thing I felt about the recent three have mainly been, I honestly do kind of just go through, pick my favorite songs every time. You know, I don't want to hear a whole record. I just want to hear some songs. I just kind of pick and choose my favorites. This is rather difficult with this album, man.
Yeah, no, I kind of feel you on that. Like earlier this afternoon, I was just kind of listening to like just their whole discography on shuffle. But this is like really the first album that I've given a chance to like start to finish. And yeah, I think this might be my favorite album so far.
The way I'm still going to look at it in terms of the Chris Barnes era albums, I'm still always going to say The Bleeding, and then with the Corpse Grinder records, pretty obvious Kill or Evisceration Plague. But man, this gives it such a run for either of those money. Like it's at least a top. I can't really give you a definitive ranking, but I would say this is like a top tier record. So let's actually start talking about the bloody music.
All right. So do you want to do this track by track? Because I can't think of a better way to open this record than with Murderous Rampage.
Oh, it just socks you right in the face. I don't think I could do a track by track breakdown, but I can definitely say if you're going to open an album out, I can't think of a better way than picking Murderous Rampage as your opening track. I mean, it's just kind of like, honestly, I was trying to think of a really good analogy to use talking about this record, but This album really does musically remind me of how good something like Firepower by Judas Priest was, where you just have such a phenomenal opening track that just sets the tone for the rest of the record.
Yeah, that first impression is incredibly important for, well, metal as a whole, but death metal especially.
Yeah, that's my thing about this record. That again, I don't want to say that it's kind of gone like, more hooky, more poppy. I never say that, but there are hooks all over this thing. Like there's so many songs on here that I can literally go, okay, chorus to this song. Okay, that riff. Yes, yes. Like honestly, the chorus to Inhumane, like literally since Inhumane Harvest was the lead off single from this record, I was just like, I cannot stop cranking this nonstop. And it passed the gym test. If I can start screaming along to it while I'm working out at the gym, provided that they're open and not closed due to COVID, I have a great time.
Yeah, just that opening riff of Inhumane Harvest is just so perfect.
Yeah, it's one part of me is just kind of going, Eric Rattan's influence is so all over this thing. Like every time Cannibal Corpse do have some kind of a lineup change in the band, it's never something that's a detriment to it, I'd argue.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Um I can't really think of a like a lineup change that really um that really like tanked the band. They never did one of those what's the name of that Celtic Frost album that everyone despises?
Cold Lake.
Yeah. They've never done a cold lake or anything too drastic.
I was actually just going to say it's not like you're gonna see them do something as bad like Illud Divinium Insanus by Morbid Angel, nothing like craptacular like that. And plus, I mean, when you have Eric Rattan, like just go back and look at his catalog of records. I mean, you have every Hate Eternal album, phenomenal. He's produced albums for bands like Goat Whore and Rivers of Nile, bands that play really well. And I kind of feel like ever since Kill came out, and this could also be a bit because since Alex Webster's like one of the main songwriters in the band, it really feels like they're pushing themselves creatively, like 15 albums deep. How often do you see that, especially in death metal?
That's pretty uncommon. Um, do you think this is the longest running death metal band, or are there others that have outlived them?
I'd outlived, maybe. I mean, you do have Possessed to have been around since like the very early 80s, but let's be honest, Possessed only have 3 albums compared to them. And then Morbid Angel, yeah, been around slightly before, but they've been kind of, I want to say hit and miss. Yeah, I'm going to say hit and miss in this case just because sometimes you'll have one record that's really good and then the next one it'll be kind of middling, and then you'll have a Ludivinium Insanus.
Yeah, but at least at least with Cannibal Corpse, you get consistency. Not only that, they're releasing an album at least once every 3 years, but it really does seem like each time they add a little something to the formula.
I'm gonna use a food analogy since my brain is on chili all day and that's what I had for dinner. It's kind of like when, you're making chili and then you decide to add like an extra ingredient to kind of play around with the formula to enhance the flavor. And in this case, I really feel like they've always been a band that's technically competent and know how to play their instruments insanely well, as shown by any album Eric Rattan plays on, or just everything from 2006 to 2017. But in Cannibal's discography. But I'm just kind of sitting back here going, there's something really impressive happening on this record. And it also could be the fact that the pandemic is happening right now still, and we won't get to hear or, go see the band live anytime soon. So it's just kind of like we just get to sit back and really soak in the music before getting to go see them again.
What I think one of my other favorite tracks on this record that we talked about off air, Ritual Annihilation.
Ooh, that solo. That is, man, as soon as I heard that solo, I was like, my mind was just blown. That was, I don't want to say anything like too out there, but my mind kind of jumped straight to almost like a Pantera type solo, honestly. Especially since
I hear a little bit of Dimebag in there.
Yeah, I mean, especially since Eric Rattan was in Morbid Angel when Pantera was doing their last tour, and they'd have them come up on stage to play that song.
Speaking of Pantera, at least like 3 or 4 times I wrote the word groovy in my notes listening to the record. One of the other times was the next track, Follow the Blood. You definitely hear a little bit more groovy percussion.
Yeah, they've been dropping a lot of groove. Like, it was usually around Evisceration Plague, they'd have the one slower song, like slower for them type song. It would be Evisceration Plague with its title track. Torture would have Scourge of Iron. Skeletal Domain would have its title track. Red Before Black had Code of the Slashers. With this, one riff was so ridiculously heavy in its groove and its hook that I couldn't help but let out like a really good laugh and just have the biggest grin on my face. It was Condemnation Contagion.
Oh,
it
yeah,
just
I
unashamedly kept punching you in the face with those pitch harmonics and the guitars, and just kept assaulting you over and over again. Like, that was one of my personal favorites off of the record.
For my notes, that one I just put just brutal, because one thing I love about the back half of this album is that just because they slow down the tempo, that does not mean they go softer. It's slower, but it's still heavy, like bombastic. The drums from Paul Mazurkiewicz.
Yeah, Paul Mazurkiewicz.
Like, the drums are just insane. I think my favorite like drumming from Paul is Bound and Burn.
For me, I'm going with Over Torture. Just the way it just immediately goes from 100 to it doesn't let up. It doesn't take the foot off the gas pedal for the entire 2.5 minutes. It's just nonstop brutality for that entire track's runtime.
Over Torture. That's such a great play on words.
Oh, and it's kind of like every one of them just kind of has a ridiculous over the top name now. Like, the last album had Remaimed, and then Over Torture would be this one. And I can't really comment too much though on the lyrics though, because I know that the lyrics are going to be potentially asked about by somebody going, hey, I'm not really a big fan of Cannibal's gory lyrics, but for me, it's the way I've always seen it. It's no more violent than something you'd see in a Friday the 13th movie.
I think Corpse Grinder has even said that in interviews. Like, I can't remember exactly which publication was like complaining about, some of their imagery. And all he really had to say is like, we don't touch politics or religion. We basically are writing songs that could be adapted into horror films.
Basically, it's not like how am I going to put this? It's not like you're just taking like disgusting torture horror and just basically just making that your entire shtick. That's kind of why I'm really not a big Infant Annihilator fan. But like with Cannibal Corpse, it's mostly, the way I look at it, it's either like a mix of Dawn of the Dead or Friday the 13th type horror lyrics. And really, for the type of music that's going on right here, it works. And Corpse Grinder's voice sounds as bulletproof as ever. That's honestly why I prefer his voice over Barnes, even on like the classic stuff off the first 4 records. I just kind of go, yeah, his voice will never get blown out, no matter how hard he growls or how hard he shrieks. Bulletproof.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about Barnes, because I don't want to make this this podcast all about shitting on him, but
Oh no, absolutely not.
last thing I'll say is that the difference between him and Corpse Grinder is Barnes just has no range. Like he kind of, like, maybe once in a while on the classic records he'll step out of his like kind of monotone growl, but that monotone growl is the reason I cannot listen to 6 Feet Under.
The thing with 6 Feet Under is just his voice is so shot beyond belief that you can't take it seriously. And again, my thing when I was listening to those early albums for the first time, I could kind of go, yeah, I'm really not ready for this type of, like, for me, again, love the band to death, but I would not personally recommend this as somebody, like, I wouldn't suggest Kiona go listen to this personally.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to get somebody hooked into death metal and they don't know where to start them off with like the Swedish melodeath stuff and kind of see where that takes them. Or, recommend them something like Children of Bodom and see where they go from there. And then, eventually over time, maybe get them hooked on those early to mid-period death albums.
Yeah, that's a good starting point for someone who's like just getting into death metal. Cannibal Corpse is like Cannibal Corpse is like a checkpoint band. They're too, I think they're a little bit too heavy for a starter, but at the same time they're a little bit too groovy for like the end point.
Yeah, the way I see it, as long as you're not, having somebody be their first introduction to death metal, as long as you're not just showing them Dying Fetus right off the bat.
Yeah, no, I would not recommend that as a first impression.
Yeah, just keep in mind, guys, we are talking about this strictly for the newbies. We got to keep them in mind when talking about this, but just given how many hooks and choruses that are so well written on this album, and I feel like a lot of, like, Cannibal Corpse have always shown their love for traditional old school metal, but at the same time, I don't think that it's been as visible as it is on this album, like as fully embraced as they've ever had them on this record.
And as we mentioned earlier, I think a large part of that in this record in particular is Eric Rutan's shredding. He seems to have a more classical approach to the axe.
The way I see it is, I can't really describe what makes a really good musician. It's just one of those cases where you'll listen to their music and you hear it and it's backed up in the playing. And honestly, yeah, I think that if they keep making records as good as this and like find ways to tighten up the formula, like, we're talking about a guy who can hear something wrong in a guitar and like go work around either like in the wiring and like the pickups or try to adjust something in the strings. We're talking about somebody who's that musically literate, if you get where I'm coming from.
Oh yeah, it takes someone with a really like fine-tuned ear to to know exactly what makes a good record.
Yeah, and just now that we're talking about that, even like the fact that it's so, because keep in mind Eric Rattan also produced, technically they are self-producing their own records now, but no, with this album, it's so well produced, but at the same time it feels like it still has that grit and dirt under its nails. It doesn't feel, I've made my disdain for the Beyond Creations and Archspires pretty known, where it's just so clinically produced to where it's so squeaky clean that it really feels like you're just watching a YouTube instructional. No, this still feels like, they're playing until their fingers start bleeding. Like they could do that.
Yeah, like a lot of these tracks like Surround, Kill, Devour, Over Torture, and even Slowly Sawn, they have that like chaotic energy that you hear in a lot of older death metal records, but this just has like it just has really clean like the sound quality is a lot cleaner, but the play like the instrument like the instrumentals are still just raw and chaotic.
Yeah, and I really feel like these songs are going to go over well. Mike, have you seen them live?
I have not seen them live.
I have seen them 3 different times. Like the first time I saw them was a year after Torture came out, and the mosh pits were so fucking crazy that I was just going like shit, even the security guards are getting in the pit because this is so much fun. Like then also throw in when I saw them opening for Behemoth, still great time. And then the last time this was actually one of the last 3 shows I went to in November of 2019. The entire time, like I could, I just watched from the balcony. I wasn't like too far. I could still see everything happening. But you could just appreciate how good of a live band even they are with Eric on guitar. I mean, they were always really good live to begin with, but especially now, I, when concerts come back, like I'm definitely making sure like they're on my top of the to see list.
Yeah, so it sounds like I need to definitely catch them live at the next time I get the opportunity.
Oh, they are such a fun time. Just fair warning, this will be hairy. It'll be very hairy. Literally, because they all just headbang and their hair covers their face.
So hair, mosh pits, and um, little,
Violence.
yeah, and little to no security is what I should expect.
There will be security, but I think this was just limited to my neck of the woods. I mean, that first, again, I'm never going to get that image out of my brain because the venue that I saw them at had no barricade. It was just the stage, crowd, go for it.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Oh, it was when I can't remember which song they would have been playing. It might have been Pit of Zombies, but it was when they were touring with Napalm Death and Immolation. Oh man, seeing security just it was getting pretty hairy. So, of course, security had to make sure everything was okay. But even they were just like, "This is too much fun."
Now, which songs on this record do you think would make the best live performances?
All of them. I hate to be that cliche, but considering I've seen them, they always try to pick at least one song off of each album to play. Obviously, they're going to play Inhumane Harvest, they're going to play Murderous Rampage, but honestly, I would be down if they just played like 8 of the 11 songs and then just picked like one each off of each album to fill out the rest of it, like 1 or 2 to fill out the rest of the set list.
I would love it if like every show from now on started with Murder's Rampage. Of course they're going to throw in Inhumane Harvest.
Yeah.
But I I just think Murderous Rampage was such a good opening track on this record that I don't know how else like you can start like a Cannibal Corpse set.
Yeah, the only thing I can really say at this point is I'm just excited for, I was already excited for whatever they were going to do next, but I was kind of just going, this is going to be a really good Cannibal Corpse record. I like this song. And then, I'd pick and choose my favorites. This is one I'd see myself going back to. Oh, this is honestly my favorite record of the year so far.
I haven't listened to too much from 2021, but yeah, this is up there at the top.
Let's the less we talk about this, the better. It at least made up for how lousy that new Architects record was.
That one still depresses me. Not even because it was bad, just I didn't want to talk I didn't want to talk about it after I listened to it.
Yeah, how about this? We just continue not talking about it for the better.
Let's
just leave it at Anthony Fantano's review and just say it's not good.
Fair enough.
But anything else you want to say about it, man? Because I feel like I've fanboyed over it. I'm excited to. I wish Amazon wasn't taking forever to get the vinyl out to me, but I'm at least happy I got the CD in the mail today.
Nice. The only other thing I have left to say, well, one, I think this might be Cannibal Corpse's most replayable album. Like I've only listened to it twice so far, but certain tracks like Ritual Annihilation and Inhumane Harvest I've listened to countless times because they just have so much to offer in even just like those 3 to 4 minutes. But the only other thing I have left to say is, despite his stage name, George Corpse Grinder Fisher is a giant teddy bear.
Oh, agreed. He's all of the guys in the band are the nicest dudes on the planet. I met them when they opened. It was a joint meet and greet. I met them and Behemoth for the first time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and funny enough too, it was the day before Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow.
And of course, they had to dedicate this one to the ladies, the song Addicted to Vaginal Skin.
Oh.
No, the only other thing I can really say about this, it has the most violent Cannibal Corpse album cover I think we've seen probably since the Wretched Spawn. I mean, yeah, a guy with a bunch of naked dead bodies for the cover of Torture, but like nothing like overtly violent the way something like the Wretched Spawn or Bloodthirst or even Gallery of Suicide, Butchered at Birth. Like for me, this arc is like a cross between the Butchered at Birth cover and Bloodthirst. Like combine those covers together and then you have this.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, that's what you get when you get a comic artist like Vincent Locke to do the album art. But no, I guess the only other thing I can say is for Cannibal Corpse fans, obviously you're going to go listen to this and you're going to love it. But I mean, for somebody who's a death metal fan who's, not either not sure or not that into them, I would really say give this album its fair shake. Like this, there's something really special happening with this. And, I'd really push for somebody to listen to this. Or if you're just getting past the melodeath stage of getting into death metal, I would say this would be a really good jumping off point to get into Cannibal Corpse. Or if you just don't like death metal altogether, then what the hell are you talking to me for about this?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. This is like this more so than Kill. In hindsight, I think this is a better first impression for someone who is coming from melodeath and wants to go deeper into the heavier side of the genre. I would say listen to this, then go back and listen to Kill. Listen to the rest of the Rutan era, and then
all of the stuff produced by him.
Yeah, and then after that, if you're really curious, you could go listen to the earlier records. But honestly, you know, to use a geek term, I don't consider anything before Vile canon.
I still will. Again, I love the first four, don't get me wrong. It's just for me, once Corpse Grinder gets in the band, again, more of a focus on good riffs, embracing more good choruses in there, having lyrics that are more about zombies. Yeah, I would say this is a top tier record to get into the. I would actually go, okay, if you're going to check out a Barnes album, go listen to The Bleeding. If you're going to listen to a mid-period album, listen to Bloodthirst or Gore Obsessed. And for the Kill era, Evisceration, Plague, and Kill.
Good recommendations. Now, since we haven't been here in a while, are there any other albums from earlier in the year that you want to give a shout out to before we close out this episode?
Let me get my best of the year list pulled up because COVID slowing everything down. One really good proggy thrash album that you should definitely go listen to instead of that awful new Architects album. Bionic Swarm by Cryptosis. This is a proggy thrash album in the vein of Voivod and Vector. Incredible band. This is their debut record. Go jam it. Really good stuff. That new Moonspell album, Hermitage, is awesome. So if you want to cry about the fact that Peter Steele is no longer with us anymore, RIP condolences, go jam that and throw on the album Necrosapiens by, I'm probably mispronouncing this horribly, but it's Based, as in Baest. This is more in the vein of, I want to say, Entombed and Vomitory, more old school, very buzzsaw-y Swedish death metal. Really good stuff.
Nice. For my recommendations, I of course have to recommend the new Epica. It's called Omega, and for those who haven't listened to the band, it's basically, I described this to Nick a couple weeks ago. It's Nightwish, but it's the spiked drink version of Nightwish.
Yeah, it's pretty much if Nightwish decided they want to listen to more Lamb of God and Slayer.
Yeah. And then the other one that I want to give a shout out to is for anyone who's familiar with the YouTube channel Become the Night. The band Crusade released their debut record Rising Visionary. So if you're a fan of progressive metal bands like Opeth or Dream Theater, this should be right up your alley.
Oof, you got to message me with that band name, because just that as soon as you say Opeth and Dream Theater, I'm like, okay, you got my attention. Cool. Also, since it did come out this week, go jam the new Liquid Tension Experiment. This is the super group with none other than Mike Portnoy, formerly of Dream Theater, and he's back with Jordan Rudess and Petrucci, still currently of Dream Theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is their first album since 1999, so it's been at least a good 21 years since they put a record out.
Well, then I know what I'm listening to next. Yeah. But before we get out of here, Nick, thank you for joining me as always. Where can everyone find you online?
Go find me at Super Saiyan Death Metal God. That is my dorky username that even Catherine Isabel of Ginger Snaps fame knows now. So woohoo. I just cracked 1,200 followers. So go follow me, binge like my stuff. And yeah, it's all appreciated. And I got a PS5, so I might go nah.
Nice. And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out all my quick thought reviews on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. Find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. All of our podcasts can be found on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, check out renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this installment of Renegade Jukebox. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.